Picture this. You're standing in your wedding dress, still glowing from what should have been the happiest day of your life, when your own mother walks up to you holding your honeymoon tickets and hands them to your sister instead. That's exactly what happened to me, and I'm Maya Chen. What my mother and sister didn't know was that they were about to get the shock of their lives. Let me introduce you to the players in this incredible story that's about to unfold. There's me, Maya, 28 years old, and honestly, I've been the family overachiever since I could walk. While other kids were playing video games, I was starting my first business selling friendship bracelets in elementary school. I worked 3 jobs through college, graduated debt-free, and built my own digital marketing company from scratch. I'm the type of person who plans everything down to the last detail and never asks anyone for anything. Then there's my mother, Patricia Chen, 52 years old and a real estate agent who's made favoritism an art form. Patricia has this incredible ability to make everything about my younger sister while making me feel invisible at the same time. She's the kind of mother who would praise Brooke for getting a C- while barely acknowledging when I graduated summa cum laude. Patricia has this sweet smile she puts on in public, but behind closed doors, she's always had this way of making me feel like I'm never quite good enough, never quite deserving of the same love and attention she showers on my sister. Speaking of my sister, meet Brooke Chen, 25 years old, and the undisputed princess of our family. Brooke has never held a job for more than 6 months, still lives at home, and has this magical ability to make every problem in her life somehow become everyone else's responsibility. She's got this laugh that sounds sweet until you realize she's usually laughing at someone else's expense. Brooke has never had to work for anything because Patricia has always made sure she never had to. She's beautiful, charming when she wants to be, and completely oblivious to how her entitlement affects other people. My father, David Chen, 54, is an accountant who's mastered the art of avoiding conflict. David loves us both, but he's spent so many years keeping the peace that he's forgotten how to stand up for what's right. He's the guy who disappears into his office when voices start raising and pretends he doesn't see the obvious favoritism happening right in front of him. He means well, but his silence has enabled this toxic family dynamic for years. And then there's my husband, Ryan Walsh, 30 years old and a marketing manager, who literally had no idea what he was marrying into when it came to my family. Ryan is supportive, loving, and has this incredible sense of justice that makes him the perfect partner for me. He comes from a normal family where parents treat their children equally, so watching my family dynamics has been like watching a train wreck in slow motion for him. Now, here's where this story gets absolutely wild. After saving every penny for 2 years, I had planned the perfect honeymoon to this beautiful boutique resort in Turks and Caicos. I found this place online, fell in love with the photos, and booked their most romantic package. I was so excited to finally treat myself to something luxurious after years of reinvesting every dollar back into my business. But as we were getting ready to leave our wedding reception, my mother did something that left our entire family and all our guests completely stunned. She walked up to me with that envelope containing our honeymoon confirmation and tickets, looked me straight in the eye, and said, "Your sister deserves this honeymoon more than you do. She's been going through such a hard time with her breakup, and you have everything you need now." Then she handed everything to Brooke, who actually had the nerve to laugh and say, "Don't worry, Maya, we'll send you tons of photos so you won't miss out on anything." I stood there in my wedding dress, watching my own mother give away something I had worked so hard for, something that was supposed to be the start of my new life with Ryan. Everyone around us was dead silent, jaws dropped, probably wondering if they had just witnessed what they thought they witnessed. But here's the thing that nobody knew, not even Ryan at that moment. I just smiled. I looked at both of them and said, "Have the most wonderful time. I really hope you enjoy every single moment of it." What they didn't know was that 6 months earlier, I had bought that resort. Let me take you back to how this whole nightmare began, because understanding my family dynamic is crucial to appreciating just how satisfying this story becomes. Growing up in the Chen household was like living in 2 different realities. There was Brooke's reality, where everything was handed to her on a silver platter, and there was my reality, where I had to earn every ounce of recognition and support. From the time I was 12 years old, I was babysitting neighbors' kids to buy my own school supplies, while Brooke got a weekly allowance just for existing. When I wanted to join the debate team, I had to fundraise for the fees myself. When Brooke wanted to try gymnastics, dance, and piano all in the same semester, Patricia opened her checkbook without question. "Maya's always been so independent," my mother would say with this tone that made it sound like independence was somehow a character flaw. "She doesn't need as much help as Brooke does." What she really meant was that she had trained me from childhood to expect nothing, so she could give everything to my sister, guilt-free. The pattern continued through college. I worked at a coffee shop at 5 a.m., tutored kids after classes, and did freelance graphic design late into the night to pay my tuition. Meanwhile, Patricia paid for Brooke's entire college experience, including her apartment, meal plan, and spring break trips. When Brooke dropped out junior year because she needed to find herself, Patricia supported that decision. When I graduated with honors and started my business, Patricia's response was, "That's nice, dear." Brooke is thinking about maybe going back to school next year, but my wedding day was supposed to be different. For once, I thought this would be about me. Ryan and I had planned everything ourselves, paid for everything ourselves, and I was so proud of what we had created. The ceremony was beautiful, held at this gorgeous vineyard about an hour outside the city. I had chosen every detail carefully, from the blush pink peonies to the string quartet that played during the ceremony. As I was getting ready that morning, I remember looking at myself in the mirror in my dress and feeling genuinely happy. This was my moment. I had found an incredible man who loved me for exactly who I was, who supported my ambitions, who treated me like I was the most important person in his world. Ryan had never once made me feel like I was asking for too much or expecting too much. The ceremony itself was perfect. When Ryan and I exchanged vows, I felt like we were the only two people in the world. He promised to always have my back, to support my dreams, and to never let anyone make me feel less than I deserved. I promised to love him with the same fierce independence that had gotten me this far in life. But even during our perfect ceremony, I could feel my mother's energy. She smiled for the photos, played the part of the proud mother, but there was something cold in her eyes when she looked at me. During the reception, she made this toast that on the surface sounded loving, but was actually backhanded in that special way only Patricia could master. "Maya has always been so determined to do everything herself," she said, raising her glass. "She's never needed much from us, which is why we know she'll be just fine in her marriage. She's used to taking care of herself." The guests clapped politely, but Ryan and I exchanged a look. Even on my wedding day, she couldn't just celebrate me without making it about my supposed self-sufficiency. Throughout the reception, I watched Patricia fuss over Brooke, who was my maid of honor but had spent most of the day complaining about her recent breakup with her boyfriend of 3 months. Brooke had actually tried to change several details of my wedding to cheer herself up, including suggesting we switch the music to songs that weren't so romantic because they made her sad. As the evening wound down and guests started congratulating us on our upcoming honeymoon, I felt this surge of excitement. Finally, something that was completely mine and Ryan's. I had researched that resort for months, saved every extra dollar, and planned every detail of our 7-day escape to paradise. I should have known that in the Chen family, nothing that brought me pure joy could stay untouched for long. The moment that changed everything happened so fast, yet felt like it was unfolding in slow motion. Ryan and I were saying our final goodbyes to guests, my wedding dress bustling around me as I hugged aunts and cousins who were heading home. I was practically glowing with excitement about our early morning flight to Turks and Caicos. I had the honeymoon envelope clutched in my hand, all our confirmations, tickets, and the detailed itinerary I'd spent months perfecting. "Maya, honey, come here for a second," Patricia called out in that sickeningly sweet voice she used when she was about to drop a bomb. I should have recognized the warning signs immediately, but I was still riding the high of my perfect wedding day. I walked over to where she was standing with Brooke, who had been sulking by the gift table for the past hour. Brooke's mascara was slightly smudged from what I assumed were more tears about her ex-boyfriend Marcus, who had dumped her 3 weeks earlier after she'd maxed out his credit card on a shopping spree. "I've been thinking about your honeymoon," Patricia began, and my stomach immediately clenched. Nothing good ever started with Patricia thinking about something that belonged to me. And I really feel like Brooke needs this trip more than you do right now. I blinked, certain I had misheard her. Excuse me? Oh, honey, don't be selfish, Patricia continued, reaching for the envelope in my hands. Look at your sister. She's been absolutely devastated since Marcus left her. She's barely eating, barely sleeping. This breakup has just crushed her spirit completely. Ryan appeared at my side, sensing the tension. What's going on? He asked, his voice already carrying an edge of concern. Patricia ignored him entirely. Maya, you have everything you need now. You have Ryan, you have your business, you have this beautiful new life starting. Brooke has nothing. She's living at home, she's heartbroken, and she desperately needs something to lift her spirits. I felt the envelope slipping from my fingers as Patricia gently but firmly took it from me. The audacity of it all was so shocking that for a moment I couldn't even speak. Around us, the remaining wedding guests were starting to notice the commotion. Mom, what are you doing? I finally managed to whisper. I'm being a mother to both my daughters, Patricia replied, turning to Brooke with the envelope. Brooke, sweetheart, I want you to take Maya's honeymoon. You deserve to go somewhere beautiful and heal your heart. Brooke's entire demeanor changed instantly. The sulking disappeared, replaced by this predatory gleam in her eyes that I'd seen countless times throughout our childhood. Really? Mom, are you serious? Absolutely serious. 7 days in paradise is exactly what you need right now. The remaining wedding guests were now openly staring. My bridesmaids looked horrified. Ryan's family, who had never witnessed the Chen family dynamics up close, appeared to be in complete shock. Patricia, Ryan stepped forward, his voice tight with controlled anger. Those are our honeymoon reservations. Maya saved for 2 years to plan this trip. Oh, Ryan. Patricia waved him off dismissively. Maya's always been so resourceful. She'll figure something else out. Besides, newlyweds don't really need elaborate honeymoons. You can be romantic anywhere. Brooke was already tearing open the envelope, her face lighting up as she looked at the resort photos and confirmation details. Oh my God, this place looks incredible. Maya, you have such good taste. Thank you so much. I didn't give it to you, I said quietly, but my voice was lost in Brooke's excitement. Look at these amenities. Brooke continued, showing the papers to Patricia. Spa treatments, snorkeling, private beach dinners. This is going to be amazing. Don't worry, Maya. Patricia and I will send you tons of photos so you can see how beautiful it is. Patricia beamed at Brooke like she had just solved world hunger. See, this is exactly what she needed. Maya, you understand, don't you? You've always been the strong one. You can handle disappointment better than Brooke can. I stood there in my wedding dress, surrounded by the remnants of what should have been the happiest day of my life, watching my mother hand my dream honeymoon to my sister like it was a consolation prize for bad dating choices. But instead of screaming, instead of crying, instead of causing the scene everyone expected, I did something that surprised them all. I smiled. The silence that followed my smile was deafening. Everyone expected me to explode, to cry, to make a scene that would give Patricia ammunition for years about how dramatic and selfish I was. Instead, I took a deep breath and looked directly at both my mother and sister. You know what? You're absolutely right, Mom, I said, my voice steady and calm. Brooke does deserve this trip. I hope you both have the most wonderful, unforgettable time. The confusion on their faces was immediate and satisfying. This wasn't the reaction they'd anticipated. Patricia had braced herself for tears or anger, something that would let her play the martyr, comforting poor heartbroken Brooke while dealing with her difficult older daughter. Brooke had expected me to beg or argue, which would have made her victory even sweeter. Really? Brooke asked suspiciously, clutching the envelope tighter. You're not upset? Not at all, I replied, placing my hand on Ryan's arm as I felt him tense beside me. I want you to enjoy every single moment of it. Take lots of pictures, try all the restaurants, book those spa treatments, really make the most of every opportunity there. Ryan stared at me like I'd lost my mind. Our remaining guests looked equally bewildered. My father, David, who had been conspicuously absent during this entire exchange, suddenly appeared looking uncomfortable. Well, that's That's very mature of you, Maya, David mumbled, clearly relieved that World War III hadn't broken out at his daughter's wedding reception. I've always said Maya was the reasonable one, Patricia said, though she still looked puzzled by my calm response. Brooke, why don't you go start packing? Your flight is tomorrow morning at 7. As Brooke practically skipped away to show off her prize to the remaining cousins, I turned to Ryan. Could I speak with you privately for just a moment? We walked to a quiet corner of the reception venue, Ryan's jaw still clenched with barely contained fury. Maya, what the hell just happened? Why are you letting them walk all over you like this? Honey, I need you to trust me on this one, I said quietly, pulling out my phone. Sometimes the best revenge isn't making a scene. Sometimes it's just letting people dig their own graves. What are you talking about? I showed him my phone screen, scrolling to a contact named Marcus Rivera. Not my sister's ex-boyfriend, but my resort manager in Turks and Caicos. Remember 6 months ago when I told you about that investment opportunity I couldn't pass up? The one where I had to move fast and couldn't give you all the details yet? Ryan's eyes widened as realization began to dawn. Maya, you didn't. I bought the resort, Ryan. The entire Coral Bay Resort and Spa. I own the place they're flying to tomorrow morning. The transformation on Ryan's face from confusion to amazement to pure admiration was everything I needed in that moment. You own their destination? Lock, stock, and barrel. The previous owner needed to sell quickly due to financial problems, and I got it for a steal. I've been working with the management team to renovate and rebrand it. I was actually planning to surprise you with the news during our honeymoon. I dialed Marcus's number, and he picked up on the second ring. Maya, how was the wedding? Eventful, I replied, watching Patricia and Brooke across the room, still basking in their perceived victory. Marcus, I need to give you very specific instructions about 2 guests who will be arriving tomorrow under my original reservation. Everything okay? 2 women, my mother, Patricia Chen, 52, short brown hair, and my sister Brooke Chen, 25, blonde, probably wearing designer clothes they can't afford. They'll have confirmation papers with my name on them. Got it. What do you need me to do? When they arrive and you see my name on their reservation, I want you to very politely explain that Maya Chen is the owner of the resort. Tell them that as guests of the owner, you'll be happy to accommodate them, but their stay has been modified from the original booking. Ryan was grinning now, understanding exactly where this was going. Modified how? Marcus asked. Standard rooms instead of the honeymoon suite. No meal plan included. They'll need to pay for all food and beverages a la carte. No complimentary activities or spa services. Basically, they can stay, but they'll be paying full resort prices for everything. Maya, you're brilliant, Marcus laughed. Consider it handled. Thanks, Marcus. Oh, and Marcus, document everything. I have a feeling this is going to be a very interesting week. 3 days into what should have been my honeymoon, while Ryan and I were actually enjoying an incredible trip to Bali that we'd secretly booked as our backup plan, my phone started buzzing at 6 in the morning local time. The caller ID showed Patricia's number, and something told me this was the call I'd been waiting for. Hello, Mom, I answered sweetly. Ryan stirring beside me in our overwater bungalow. Maya Christine Chen, what the hell is going on? Patricia's voice was shaking with a combination of fury and panic that I'd never heard before. Do you have any idea what's happening to us down here? I'm sorry, what do you mean? Aren't you enjoying the resort? I asked innocently, putting the phone on speaker so Ryan could hear everything. Enjoying it? Maya, they're saying you own this place. The manager, Marcus, told us yesterday when we checked in that you're the owner of the entire resort. How is that even possible? I could hear Brooke crying in the background, which was music to my ears. Oh, that's right. I forgot to mention that little detail. I bought Coral Bay Resort about 6 months ago. It was such a good investment opportunity, I couldn't pass it up. The silence on the other end lasted so long I thought the call had dropped. Finally, Patricia found her voice again, but it was much smaller now. You bought the resort where you booked your honeymoon? I bought it first, then booked my honeymoon there afterwards. I wanted to see my investment property firsthand and make sure everything was perfect for future guests. Speaking of which, how are you finding the accommodations? Maya, we're in some tiny room that barely has a view of the parking lot. This isn't what was supposed to be your honeymoon suite." "Well, Mom, when you took my honeymoon and gave it to Brooke, I had to call Marcus and modify the reservation. As the owner, I felt it was more appropriate to put you in standard accommodation since you weren't actually invited guests." Brooke's voice came through the phone, tearful and incredulous. "Maya, they're making us pay for everything. Every meal, every drink, even the beach chair rentals. We've already spent over $800 and we've only been here 2 days." That's how resorts work, Brooke. When you're not on an all-inclusive package, you pay for what you consume. Didn't you check the booking details before you decided to take my trip? "But this was supposed to be your all-inclusive honeymoon package," Patricia interjected. "It was. But that was for Ryan and me, as paying customers who had booked and paid for those services. When you gave my reservation to yourselves, you became walk-in guests. I instructed Marcus to accommodate you, but at standard rates." Ryan was practically in tears from trying not to laugh out loud. He grabbed the phone from me for a moment. "Hi, Patricia, it's Ryan," he said, his voice professionally polite. "I just wanted you to know that Maya and I are having an absolutely wonderful honeymoon. The resort we're staying at here in Bali has been incredible. Thank you for asking." I took the phone back as Patricia sputtered. "Bali? You went to Bali instead?" "Of course we did. Did you really think we'd just cancel our honeymoon because you gave away our reservations? We're not children, Mom. We made alternative arrangements." "Maya, please." Patricia's voice was getting desperate now. "We can't afford to stay here. These prices are astronomical. Can't you give us some kind of family discount or something?" This was the moment I'd been waiting for. The moment when Patricia Chen, who had spent 28 years making me feel like I wasn't worth the same consideration as my sister, was asking me for help. "Here's what I can do," I said slowly, savoring every word. "Marcus has strict instructions to treat you exactly as you treated me, as people who don't deserve what they originally had. But if you'd like to leave early, I'm sure he can help you change your flight arrangements. But we've already paid for the flights and everything. That's the thing about consequences, Mom. They're expensive." Brooke grabbed the phone. "Maya, this isn't fair. I didn't know you owned this place." "Life isn't fair, Brooke. But sometimes, if you're really lucky, it's justice." The line went quiet except for muffled arguing between my mother and sister. Finally, Patricia came back on. "We're leaving tomorrow," she said quietly. "Have a safe flight home. Oh, and Mom, next time you decide someone doesn't deserve something they worked for, maybe make sure you know the whole story first." I hung up and looked at Ryan, who was staring at me with complete awe. "That," he said, "was the most beautiful thing I've ever witnessed." Patricia and Brooke's flight landed back home after just 3 days of their 7-day dream vacation, and the ripple effects of their humiliation spread through our family faster than wildfire. My Aunt Susan, Patricia's sister, called me that very evening, barely able to contain her laughter. "Maya, honey, your mother just called me crying about how you set them up in Turks and Caicos. When I heard you actually owned the resort, I nearly choked on my wine. That's the most poetic justice I've ever heard of in my life." The story spread through our extended family like wildfire. Cousins, uncles, family, friends, everyone was talking about how Patricia had tried to give away Maya's honeymoon only to discover that Maya owned the destination. What had started as Patricia's attempt to put me in my place had backfired spectacularly, and now she was the one who looked foolish. But the real changes started when they got home. For the first time in my adult life, Patricia couldn't spin this story to make herself look like the victim. There was no way to explain away taking someone's paid-for honeymoon and giving it to someone else without looking absolutely terrible. Even my father, David, who had spent decades avoiding conflict, couldn't pretend this was normal family behavior. "Patricia, what you did was wrong," I heard him say during a family dinner the following week. "I should have stopped you at the wedding, and I'm ashamed that I didn't." That was the first time I'd ever heard my father directly contradict my mother about her treatment of me. David pulled me aside later that evening and actually apologized, not just for the honeymoon incident, but for years of staying silent while Patricia favored Brooke. "I told myself I was keeping the peace," he said, his eyes filled with regret. "But really, I was just being a coward. You deserved better from both of us, Maya." Brooke's reaction was perhaps the most interesting. She went through several stages, first anger that I had tricked them, then embarrassment. When she realized how the story sounded when other people heard it, and finally, something that looked almost like respect. "I had no idea you were doing that well financially," she admitted during an awkward coffee meeting a month after the honeymoon disaster. "I mean, I knew you had your business, but I didn't realize you could just buy a whole resort." "That's because no one in our family ever asked about my business or showed interest in what I was actually accomplishing," I replied. Not unkindly, but directly. "You all just assumed I was getting by." The conversation that followed was the most honest Brooke and I had ever had. She admitted that she'd never really thought about how hard I worked or what I'd achieved on my own. In her mind, I was just the responsible one who didn't need help or recognition. It was a sobering moment for both of us. Patricia's transformation took longer, but it was the most significant. She couldn't go back to treating me like the invisible daughter after everyone knew I owned a Caribbean resort. She started asking about my business, actually listening when I talked about my work, and, most surprisingly, she stopped automatically siding with Brooke in every situation. "I think I owe you an apology," Patricia said during a family barbecue 3 months later, not just for the honeymoon, but for a lot of years of not seeing how successful you'd become. It wasn't the deep, emotional apology I might have wanted, but it was something. Patricia isn't the type of person who does dramatic confessions or tearful reconciliations. For her, simply acknowledging that she'd been wrong was enormous. The honeymoon incident became a turning point for our entire family dynamic. Brooke started actually working, at a marketing firm, inspired partly by seeing what I'd built for myself. David became more vocal about fairness and started checking Patricia when she slipped back into old patterns. And Patricia, while still Patricia, learned to think twice before dismissing my achievements or assuming I didn't deserve the same consideration as everyone else. As for the resort, it's been incredibly successful. Marcus and I have turned Coral Bay into one of the most highly rated boutique destinations in Turks and Caicos. Ryan and I return every year for our anniversary, staying in the owner's suite that Patricia and Brooke never got to see, the one with the private infinity pool and panoramic ocean views. But the best part of this whole story isn't the financial success or even the family changes. It's the lesson I learned about my own worth. For 28 years, I had accepted being treated as less important, less deserving, less worthy of love and attention. I had internalized my mother's message that I was strong enough to handle disappointment and neglect. That day at my wedding reception, when I smiled instead of screaming, when I chose strategy over emotion, when I let my success speak louder than my words, that was the moment I finally understood that I didn't need anyone's permission to be proud of what I'd accomplished. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's just letting people discover that they underestimated you completely. And sometimes, if you're really lucky, that discovery changes everything for the better. So that's my story. How my mother's attempt to humiliate me on my wedding day ended up being the moment my entire family finally understood who I really was. Sometimes life has a funny way of giving people exactly what they deserve, doesn't it? I learned that you don't have to fight every battle with anger or tears. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stay calm, stay strategic, and let your success do the talking for you. My marriage is stronger than ever, my business is thriving, and my family relationships, while still a work in progress, are built on actual respect now instead of assumptions. If this story resonated with you, or if you've ever felt underestimated by your own family, I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. Have you ever had a moment where you got to prove someone wrong in the most satisfying way? Share your story. I read every single comment. And if you enjoyed this tale of family drama and sweet justice, please hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel for more real-life stories that'll make you believe in karma, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Trust me, I've got plenty more stories where this came from. Thanks for listening, and remember, never let anyone convince you that you don't deserve the good things you've worked for. Sometimes the best response to being underestimated is simply proving them wrong. Until next time, take care.